We are delighted to have with us Alice Parker, a renowned conductor and composer and arranger who is about to celebrate her 95th birthday in December, if I'm getting that right. You,
Unbelievable.
you were born in Boston and attended New England Conservatory, which is also my alma mater. A composer of so much music, but we might say primarily vocal music, operas, song cycles,
True.
hymns, and of course the many folk song arrangements that you arranged, some of which for the Robert Shaw Chorale. You're the
Right.
founder of Melodious Accord, a wonderful educational program with its attached performing ensemble. You have received
Right.
so many honors, I won't even list them here.
Please don't.
But you are an enabler, and I have seen you in action as a promoter of singing, of having everybody sing, and not just from sheet music, and focusing on melody and the ability to improvise and improvise harmony. And that is something I greatly appreciate. But we're here to talk about An American Kadusha, a piece that you wrote, I believe, in 1999.
Right.
And
Right.
I wonder if you can tell us something about the genesis of the piece. How did you come to write this piece? I believe it was a commission.
It was a commission, unlikely as it seems, from the American Guild of Organists. And they asked me to write the piece to be performed at their annual convention in 2000. And it was to be a choral piece with or without accompaniment. They did not specify that they needed organ. They did suggest a text that they wanted me to set, which was the L'Adore Vador. And I thought, well, I don't know that at all. I need to find out about that. So I accepted the commission for a kind of a 3-minute anthem. And then I called my good friend Eleanor Epstein, who sets me straight on all things Jewish, and asked her, what's this text? And she said, oh, that's not a text by itself. That belongs in the Kedushah. And I said, well, what's the Kedushah? Being totally ignorant. So she promptly sent me the whole text of the Hebrew. And I said, well, I need a word by word translation so that I know what I'm doing. So she sent me that. And I very soon realized that there's no way I could write a 3-minute piece on L'Adore Vador. It's over in a flash unless you just keep repeating it over and over, which it calls for, of course. But she also put me onto this wonderful folk song melody. And the whole thing began to be possible for me when she brought that, because it's exactly the lift of energy in the middle of the piece that it needs. But I got so taken by this gorgeous text. Of course, very familiar, much of it to me from our Bible, the King James translation. And so I got thinking, well, I have to make my connection with this Hebrew, and that I need to know it very well. I need to know how it sounds. So Eleanor, bless her heart, made a very careful tape of her speaking the text. And I said, I really want very carefully accents and pullings back and any of the wonderful little extra sounds that you get when people are speaking. The difference between Hebrew spoken, which is partly singing, and Hebrew sung, as in English, we have to be much more careful about the vowel sounds and much more careful about the consonants. So she prepared this for me, and as I was working on it, I thought, well, really, ideally, what I need is an English translation that exactly matches not the meaning of each syllable, but the sound of the syllable, so that I can get an English phrase which exactly matches the Hebrew. Well, that's a huge job, of course.
נקדש את שמך בעולם. כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מערוך.
but I couldn't write the piece unless I did it. And as I was working on it, it became very clear to me that I had to have a cantor and a chorus, and that it seemed to me at this point in our lives, I needed two cantors. I needed a man and a woman, so that I now have three performing voices, a man soloist, a woman soloist, and the chorus, and that I could trade the Hebrew text back and forth between any of them, they're all equal, or the English text. So you get all different kinds of combinations of one cantor doing Hebrew and the other one doing English and the chorus doing one or the other behind. All the different possible permutations of that. So your ear is constantly kind of awakened by moving from one voice to another. Another thing was the chant the chant places that come between that are just beautiful, that I tried to base those totally on the rhythms that Eleanor spoke to me, so that I was working from the Hebrew rhythms. But she said that the kind of chant that I was used to in English, in British church music, or in Latin chant, is very foreign to Hebrew. I would start to go off onto something like this with a pedal held, and she said, no, you can't do that. She was very clear about what I couldn't do, which was enormously helpful to me. I love Eleanor, she's so outspoken. So it took, of course, forever to get all this, but I really loved working on it, and it opened up just new doors to me in the relationship, our Christian relationship to the Jewish scriptures, which underlie, of course, all of our Old Testament, and respect for the way it's been handed down. I love the fact that written Hebrew doesn't account for vowels. Is that right? You have mostly consonants.
The original,
in the
yes, that's right.
Yeah, the original, so that it leaves it up to the spoken person, what we were speaking about just a moment ago. We need other human beings in the room with us in order to bring this text to life. And I just have to tell one other story about working with Eleanor. I remember telling her how much I loved so many of the Old Testament passages, the ones that are reproduced in the Kedushah. But also I said, just the beginning of Genesis is such wonderful language. And she said, oh, but you don't know it in Hebrew. And I felt as if the floor were opening out from underneath me and I was being dropped back into previous ages of association with that text of which I had been unaware. So that was the kind of experience that I was going through in working with it.
Well, that's wonderful. You know, I was struck by, I was going to say the binary nature of both having the Hebrew and the English and the two cantors, the male and the female. But as you point out, we add the chorus and it opens up so many more possibilities. You credit Eleanor, which is great because there's so much, it sounds Jewish, I have to say. Both the traditional
Jewish.
melody that you used and the chant. You really were able to get the essence of Jewish chant in the section at the beginning and the end of the piece.
I'm so glad, yeah.
And who came up with the English text?
Well, Eleanor gave me literally a word-for-word translation, kind of like what's printed in the back of the score.
Right.
Where you get the Hebrew and the English. English is all out of order. So I got that, but I had to, it's like writing a poem almost. I had to work with that very fragmentary English of the translation to make it into phrases. And I must say, I must credit Robert Shaw here with, we worked a lot on translation together, and his insistence on getting the musical phrase to exactly model the text phrase. So I'm always starting from text and finding the musical aspects of text. First, the rhythm. So the rhythm is right, but then also accent. And accent has so much to do with pitch, that you go to a higher pitch when you're going to stress something. Mm-hmm. And so that the whole musical line is growing out of the text. The example I use with my students is a plant. It grows out of one seed and up one stem, and then it branches out these different ways. But if everything always relates back to that first stem, then it all hangs together. But you have to be listening oh so carefully to the language then, which is what I love to do.
Well, you did a wonderful job, and I think you went beyond that because you came up with a poetry that sounds like poetry in English. Phrases like rushes of sound, which has such a wonderful
Yes.
poetic sound to it, and it's an extrapolation and a beautiful extrapolation from the Hebrew
Yes.
original. So,
That's what I was aiming for.
yeah. You have done a lot of work, of course, with folk songs and folk song arrangements, and you've done a few other Hebrew pieces as well. Can you tell us about those?
Yes, these again come from commissions for Eleanor for her chorus, which I really love being with and hearing and the way she works with them. And these are all things that she selected because she needed materials for her chorus. And I encouraged her from the beginning to write herself, and she was very reluctant. She said, I can't do that. And I said, oh, yes, you can, because you know your chorus, you know its voice. So she's done some wonderful arrangements herself. But she gave me such titles as Dorme, Dorme, which has to be one of the most gorgeous melodies ever. And I feel the same way about La Rosa en Flores. That beautiful, well, it's Spanish, that wonderful, the same thing that Dorme comes out of, that Ladino. Blessings. But then the marvelous dances like Yesusum, they're just so, they just bring you into it. And again, with all of these, I have to memorize the language that I'm setting and do it over and over. And I pretend I'm a different person saying it. Suppose I'm somebody that's just in the heat of action and I'm doing this, or somebody that is really sitting by themselves and pondering deeply, how would I read this? So you read the text in many different ways and find the one that just sticks in the back of my mind. That when I come back to that text after being away from it, that's the voice I hear. And then I listen to that voice and follow it through.
Well, you certainly captured the energy in Yesusum and the sweetness
Yes.
and beauty in the other pieces.
And then on Negan, I just love that whole idea that you speak, you tell a story in such a way that you totally overcome your own physical limitations. You're
Yes.
just out of your body. And which is exactly what language does, which is that other story that Eleanor told me about one of the legends that the letters in the alphabet have characters of their own and are living. And I just love that relationship with language. Anything that has to do with the sound of language rather than the writing down. The writing down always feels to me as if you're losing such an essential part of it.
Yeah, it's secondary.
So I'm trying to dig through the accretions that come from the page and dig back to what the original, who was the first person that sang this? What caused them to sing it this way? You know?
Because in the beginning was the sound, not the writing.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, exactly.
So can I ask you, when you sit down to compose, to arrange, how does the muse come to you? What's your process?
The muse is around all the time. I remember doing a workshop with a friend who was working with drama and was trying to get us to understand how different ways that a dramatist looks at text and whatnot. And he set us, the people in the workshop, a little task of imagining that we could be in a conversation with our muse. What would it be like? And what would the muse say to us? And I loved this again. And it took me right away into a conversation where I realized that ideas, what the muse was handing me, were flowing. I was in the middle of a big river that was flowing past me all the time, full of ideas. And all I needed to do was reach out and pluck one, which is the opposite of sitting down and writing, saying, oh dear, what shall I write? So I've never had to hunt for ideas. What I have to hunt for is the text that gives me the beginning of the idea. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I love that preliminary searching, and I love the finding of the melody, the teasing the melody out of the text, finding a form that allows the text to speak, and that was essential in the Kedushah, because it's this mixture of big voices, those beautiful quotations from the Tanakh that are like big structural cones, and then how to handle all the other things. Where is the high point of the piece? Mm-hmm. Where is the low? How do you get up to the high? How do you get out of the high and end back down on earth? Yeah, I've run to the end of that line of thought. I probably am way off from your question. Remind me what I'm talking about.
do you approach a secular text differently than you would approach a sacred text?
No. In both cases, I'm looking back to who was the first person that sang this, that said it, and what are all the different possibilities of the way that people could say it. And the music itself can't tell whether it's sacred or secular till you put words to it. And there are people that say that music is a gift of God and therefore all music is sacred. There are other people that say that music is a gift of the devil and all music is going to lead us astray. A lot of the church fathers have said that, at least our Christian church fathers, that the music is going to lead us astray because it's too pleasant.
Yep. Yep.
And that I find so strange. It's just because there isn't a Bible verse that says Jesus laughed. We need one.
There's also a constant struggle in synagogues between the cantors and the rabbis. So,
of course.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's absolutely built into the human condition. We are a constant conversation going on with our inner voices, and we can always see both sides. And we take one side very strongly in our things. Like I can't stand people that read the page exactly the way it is. I just don't want to be in the same room with them. But I can manage as a human being to speak with them. Yeah.
So we're doing this as part of a program about women in Jewish music and their careers. We're not saying Jewish women in music, but women in Jewish music, which I am
very
happy
neat
to
distinction.
say includes you. So one of the questions that I'm asking is, when you were entering the profession, there were not very many women conductors or composers. What were some of the challenges that you remember, and how did you overcome these challenges?
I don't remember exclusion. I was lucky enough to grow in a family where my parents were very firm about, there were 5 of us, girls and boys, and we all were subjected to the same regime. There was no difference. There was no boys' jobs and girls' jobs. We all did everything, and we were expected not only to do everything, but to do everything well. So there was a very high standard. So when I was taking piano lessons when I was 8 and decided I want to write a piece, they encouraged me. And I made up a piece at the piano and took it to my teacher, and she was horrified. Nobody had ever done this to her before. She was a well-educated woman and stuff, but nobody had ever come to her from this angle. She knew somebody to send me to, who was another woman who understood perfectly where I was coming from, made me see the relationship between what I was doing at the piano and the page, and I was off. That was all I needed. And thereafter, I think I am constitutionally an avoider of confrontation. I'm extremely uncomfortable in it. I don't like it. Therefore, I don't notice the closed door so much as the fact that it's there and I'm going to find a way around it. or put it off for a time. In my high school yearbook, it said that my great ambition was to conduct the Boston Symphony. I changed that over the years. That is not one of my primary things now, though if the opportunity were given me, I would accept it, because another part of my philosophy is try anything. You know, all you can do is fail. And then if you fail, you pick yourself up. But I've had all kind of wonderful opportunities as a result of that attitude. Working with Shaw, he was perfectly marvelous to work with. I learned so much compositionally from him because his ear is so acute. And his comments that he made about my sketches of arrangements that I would bring to him were so exactly right, that they were things that I felt as if I should have been learning these things in my composition classes at school, but I wasn't. Like, how long does that note want to be held? How much air does the singer have left to prolong it at the end? You can write a whole note and not think anymore about it, but where does that final consonant really want to come? And it's when you start working at that level that you become a craftsman of it, not just an idea putter-outer. The other lucky thing about the work with Shaw is that he commissioned me to write these sets of arrangements for the recordings, a set of Easter carols, a set of love songs, a set of spirituals. So I had to go do research in the library to find the materials. I had to do first sketches. He would go through his meticulous working over of them with me. I had to prepare a clean score for the choir to sing from. I was present often at the recording sessions and heard what worked right away and what didn't. And then I had to prepare a clean score for publication and read proofs and listen to the recording. So I got a chance to do the whole circle. That's not often possible for people. So I wasn't excluded at all in that sense. And then when I discovered, after I started teaching, after I took time out to have 5 children myself, and I learned so enormously from the way those kids learned music. They knew it all when they were born. I felt as if anything I was trying to teach them, I was limiting them, and I should better learn from them, which of course is the world of sound. It's not the page. So I never tried to get an orchestral conducting position. I never felt in the least ready for it. When I was conducting myself, I was very happy working for years with church choirs and with school groups and with amateur groups. When I felt as if I wanted a chance to sing with wonderful singers as the Shaw Chorale people were, that was one of the reasons that I formed Melodious Accord, that I could get a background through which I could work professionally and hire professional singers. And I've just loved working with them, but I've never wanted to give up the amateur groups either. I love the challenge of an amateur group. And one of the reasons that I started my sings was to show people that they didn't have to have voice lessons or know how to read music or anything else, like my small babies. They knew it already, but everything was standing in their way. They were being limited by people's expectation that they could read music, or that they could produce a clear vowel or no diction or all these other things. That I have for myself what I call the 10-minute rule in a sing, that I want to bring this melody totally to life within 10 minutes. So the first part of that is that I teach it by rote, by singing and echoing, because there's no way that the page can convey what that is. The page conveys 5%, very bald pitch, very bald rhythm. But if you sing it the way it is on the page, it comes out like the computer playing it back, which is totally unacceptable. I can't bear to listen to it. So I start with the lining it out, and sometimes that can take, if it's a chant melody that with lots of intricacy, it can take almost the whole 10 minutes to get the chant melody to the level at which people are really sinking into it and enjoying it. So there's not much time left to play with it. With a much more easy melody to cope with, I can get there very quickly. And then I go to the stage where I'm telling people how to play with that melody, which is the beginning of arranging, which is the beginning of improvising, which comes before arranging. And if we hold the last note of that while the next group sings the next phrase, then we've got two parts of music. And it sounds totally different from just everyone singing unison. But on a page, it looks like nothing. It's not two parts because one part is just sitting there doing nothing. Oh, no, they're not. It's just casting the melody in a different light. So I open out these possibilities for imitation and different things that you can do with them. And then as I come to the end of my 10 minutes is performance. And my definition of performance is you don't stop. You're going to do the whole thing without any stop in it. And I throw them out, all of these ingredients. I said, we always need people to sing the melody, so don't worry if you don't feel comfortable improvising. But some of you can hold this note here, or some people can make a little canon here, or you can do a rhythm. One of the best things I discovered was that getting people to do a quick tonal dancing piece was that they read it so badly on the page, it doesn't dance at all. So if I set up a rhythm with them as if they're improvising rhythm band in kindergarten, be a dum 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 or dum 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 or dum 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 da da da, all the kind of jazzy things you can do, or say you're outside on a beach in Africa and you've got all those instruments at your disposal. What can you do with your own mouth to imitate those and get a whole rhythmic thing with no pitches set up in the room, and then sing the melody into that? And if that is the way it goes, they never ever sing it wrongly after that.
Like
they never go through
what
that
they call a
awful
beatbox
stage.
now.
Yes, exactly. That's a very good term. Thank you. Yeah.
So the reason I was asking you that question before was what I remember hearing from my teacher, Lorna Cook-DeVaron, who I'm sure you know, knew, and her telling us these horror stories of the discrimination and the way she was treated by other conductors, conductors for whom she was preparing choruses.
Yes, she was head on against them instead of being able to work with them. Yeah, now that was awful. In the summer of 1947, I was at Tanglewood for the summer, and Lorna Cook-DeVaron was there. Iva D. Hyatt was there. Al and Barbara Patterson were there. There were just all kind of people. I look back at that, turning in Lorna and I, of course, were good friends all of our lives. But that was the difference between my being principally a composer where I'm working by myself. I'm also a composer who didn't dare admit to people that I was a composer till I was 45, because I was sure they would laugh at me. So I was really keeping very, very separate, not inviting the kind of contact in which I could get rejected and hurt. And then when I started doing the sings, as I said, that was what was really leading into my ease at conducting, because I discovered I could really work for sound, and that it worked just as well with classic literature as with the folk songs and spirituals and arrangements. So, and Lorna, I read your lovely tribute to her. She was just such a delightful person and so knowledgeable and strong woman. My goodness. Yeah.
She was tough.
Yes, exactly.
In a good way, though. In a good way.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful way. They produced results. Yeah.
And she had an ear, and the way she taught the contemporary music, 20th century music, that was extraordinary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alice, is there anything else? We've kind of come to the end of my talking points. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, just thanks to the Jewish community for accepting me so wonderfully. I just have been so enriched as I am when I come in contact with wonderful melodies from anywhere. But this whole tradition And I belong to a Bible study group and have always been active in our church, but I'm so totally indebted to the background that comes from your people. I could easily be Jewish.
We'll make you an honorary Jewess.
All right. The Mennonites did that for me too. I consider that was lovely. So thank you very much, Josh. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Alice. The pleasure is mine, and I wish you good health and in advance a very happy birthday.
Thank you very much,
And
Josh. You're the first one.
Continue your wonderful work for many years.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.